Hi guys, we are here with another edition of the Movie Club live discussions. This is our 9th one, so we're almost gonna hit the 10 movie mark. I can't believe it's been 9. Like, only when I looked at the image it said number 9. I'm like, damn, it's been 9 movies? Wow. This was a very interesting pick for me. Our pick this week is Quentin Tarantino's Reservoir Dogs, the first film that really put him on the map when it premiered in Sundance, and back in 1991, I think it premiered, but it came out in 1992 in theaters, and it really put him on the map as a very exciting, up-and-coming director. He was actually like in a lot of articles talking about the new wave of independent directors in the 90s. It was him and 4 other directors that I've never heard of. So clearly he was 1 out of 5 to make it through. And now, you know, Quentin Tarantino is one of the quintessential directors that all filmmakers and all fans know. And he's part of pop culture at this point, and there's a lot of feelings and emotions when it comes to him. Whether it's critics, fans, film fans, and just regular movie-going audience. I have my own opinions about Quentin Tarantino that I have not made secret, but I've never actually discussed it properly. And I won't fully discuss it here because I want to talk about the movie, but I will just go into a little bit of why I'm not the biggest fan of Quentin Tarantino. That doesn't mean I don't think he's a good director or I don't like his films. That's not true. There is just some things about his style that I'm not a fan of, and I can point those things out.
I love it.
Yeah. So I'd like to welcome. I just said I'd like to welcome. Awesome. Ramadan Kareem, everybody. I'd like to welcome William with us here. William Ruffin, who is obviously a giant fan and is known to directors. So we're gonna try to have a civil, level-headed discussion. Also, I'd like to welcome Yusuf with us here, one of our prime members of the movie club. He's been here every week, so that's awesome, dude. You've been completely awesome these couple of weeks. So hi guys, how have you been?
Been good. It's very good.
Good.
I think we're having a few connection issues, but yeah. We have a few connection issues, so everybody bear with us. It's been lagging a lot. Yeah, it's been lagging a lot today. I don't know why, but you know, it's okay. So anyway, Reservoir Dogs was Quentin Tarantino's first film. It was done in like one of the tiniest budgets. It was actually supposed to be made with a budget of like $30,000 or something, like a hilarious guerrilla filmmaking budget. But then Harvey Keitel got involved, and it went up to 1.2 million or 1.3 or something, which made it a film budget. You know, it wasn't like a guerrilla budget, but still, it was a very small budget, which makes this film very, very interesting for me, being a person who is a child of guerrilla filmmaking. All I do is guerrilla filmmaking. So that's why it has a special place in my heart in classic cinema. I actually love this film. I love Reservoir Dogs, even though I am not a fan of modern day Quentin Tarantino. For me, this film has some of the best stuff that I actually think makes Quentin Tarantino a great director, and a greater writer, and not a great director, but I'd say an amazingly stylistic director. He's special. He's unique. And it really shines through here, and he is a little restrained, so for me there isn't a lot of the stuff that I'm not a fan of that I'm going to get into. But my first impression is, I haven't seen this film since I was in college, but my first impression is that this film it still holds up. It still holds up. It still plays so well in 2020, just as well as it did in the 90s. Some of the references they make might be a little bit outdated, but still the fact that they make these references and how this film is some of the earliest examples of like meta filmmaking and film characters feeling like they're real people just talking about, you know, pop culture and things that matter to them and things that they are a fan of. So I think it holds up really, really nicely. So guys, I'll start with you, Yusuf. Give me your first impression. Is it the first time you see it? Is it a rewatch? And what's your first impression?
So I'm a really big Tarantino fan. I think things are gonna get interesting maybe later in this discussion. This is probably the third or fourth time that I've watched it. Last time I watched it, I had a bit of a Tarantino marathon before Hollywood came out. I will say something. Like last week, I said this is one of my least favorites of his movies. But watching it again, I changed my mind. Actually, I really like this. I think.
I remember you said in the last feed that you love Quentin Tarantino, but you don't like this film. And I said, I am not his biggest fan, but I actually love this film. And I thought that was going to be the dynamic.
Well, let's just say, I don't like it by Tarantino standards. It's still better than a lot of other movies. Like, a lot of other opinions I have about other movies. But it's just a movie that gets so much better with rewatch because once you're not actually trying to figure out like what are all these jumps happening, what's like the whole mystery, you can just sit back, enjoy, and notice just a lot more. Like the thing I noticed this time was the character dynamics between people, like how just a few words or a few gestures conveyed so much the relationship between these characters.
Yes.
Who didn't know each other, were not even allowed to talk about their
just a tad bit, but there's no way you could hate on Quentin Tarantino and then worship at the altar of Guy Ritchie. I call it hypocrisy. There's no way that you're going to say, okay, I hate Quentin Tarantino, but I like Snatch, I like Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. You can't. Quentin Tarantino is the father of this stuff. You know what I'm saying? I was there when he gave birth to Guy Ritchie. I was there. I was in the waiting room.
Correct. Yes, his style is has been very, very influential. Till this day, like I could make an argument. I could connect the Quentin Tarantino early stylistic choices and meta and referential pop culture humor that he used in here and in more in a more chiseled way in Pulp Fiction is some of the stuff that's utilized now in the MCU films, especially like stuff like Guardians of the Galaxy and things like that. So definitely, I would say that. But I mean, I want to talk about this film specifically, and I was actually very excited to talk about it because Reservoir Dogs is an interesting film. It's not one of his most like hailed films. It's not the one that everybody talks about when they talk about Quentin Tarantino. But for me, whenever I think Quentin Tarantino, I think Reservoir Dogs. I really love this film, and not a big fan of his latter work. Why? Well, this movie has some of the coolest stuff that he's ever done, that he has the tendency to do in terms of writing and execution and storytelling. I mean, you can argue that this movie is about storytelling itself and how we all tell stories about who we are. And there's definitely this meta commentary on acting and how, Tim Roth's character Orange is like rehearsing a script and how he becomes that character. The film is set, in Hollywood.
One of the best scenes ever.
The commode story, fantastic sequence.
Exactly.
And it's a commentary. Also, the film is set in Los Angeles, in Hollywood, close to Hollywood, and it could be like an indirect commentary. He was like an up-and-coming director, and he's commenting on the facade that is Hollywood and Hollywood films, and he comes in with this fresh, dirty, bloody, take on real characters. And this is what I like about Reservoir Dogs, and what I have a problem with his later films, is that in Reservoir Dogs, the coolest thing about it is that it shows you what other films of the same genre don't, right? Other films, when I say a heist film, what are we going to see? The heist. What are we going to see? The characters killing and murdering and fighting the police and taking hostage. That's what your mind does. This is Quentin doing what he does best, which is transcend the genre and show you what other films don't show. Show us the criminals being sloppy, having moral questions about who they are and their relationships to each other, messing up, fighting and arguing about giving tips. You know what I mean? Like, it's the stuff you don't expect to see, and that's why it's so real and grounded. Which is a touch I feel that he lost later down, not in Pulp Fiction, not even in Jackie Brown, but later down the line, Kill Bill onwards really is my issue. So I just want to tap into the comment section for a second before I go, because there's a lot of comments coming in. It's always hard for me to keep up, but I'm going to try. So we have Mr. Kaplan. Hi, nice to see you. And we have B Mo. These are all new members, so hi guys, welcome to the discussion. Bimo says that they're all like big fans. There isn't anybody in there that's not a fan of this film. It is a fantastic film. Steven says, was Tim Roth established at this point? He was a little bit, not as big, but he was one of the big names in the film as opposed to others. Steven says, I always found it mind-blowing that it was a diamond heist that never actually showed the heist itself, which is what I'm sort of talking about. It was, Ahmed Khandaqji says, it was all Harvey Keitel. They had no budget. They had to improvise. That is correct. Yeah, that's what I was saying. It was like $30,000. And then Harvey Keitel got a hold of the script from a friend, got super excited, and ended up making the film and helping them and increase the budget of the film to $1. But it's still a small budget. Like actually, most of the stuff that the guys are wearing, most of their props are actually their own, which is very interesting. They didn't have money for wardrobe. Most of the money was spent on Stuck in the Middle with You, you know. So it's just, there's something about this film that is the passionate young filmmaker, you know, breaking his arms and legs and neck to get it done, to put his vision out there, that I really like a lot. So what do you guys think? Do you want to talk about the film first, or do you want me to talk about Tarantino and what I think of him in regards to Reservoir Dogs and what has come after? What do you want? You tell me.
Sure, let's start with the film itself. Let's start with the movie itself. Actually, I had a question. I couldn't remember.
Sure.
What was the name of the train house movie that inspired this one? The one with Michael Caine.
I don't know that. What I know is that it was heavily influenced by City of Fire, which was a heist film from Hong Kong, a Hong Kong film. And that's something that Quentin Tarantino does a lot. He borrows from a lot of Asian cinema and Asian material. I'm just saying, it's true. City of Fire is a film about a maverick cop who infiltrates a group of jewel thieves, and the heist goes wrong, and then they're all like going through stuff. So anyway, that's the film that I know that is very, very much connected to this. It's City of Fire. It's actually a very good movie. But yeah, the thing is, Quentin Tarantino is a fan of film, you know, and that's another discussion that people have. What is the line between, borrowing and homaging and, going further than that? I don't think, I mean, again,
I think he never made...
Huh?
I say he's never hidden the fact that he's borrowed all these movies, right? Like,
No.
He's always been very upfront about promoting, like, these are awesome movies that you should be watching.
Yes. Well, Quentin Tarantino is very good at promoting himself. He's actually, like, if I were to see, we keep going back to talking about it. Anyway, we'll get into it. The name Reservoir Dogs actually comes from somebody mispronouncing a name of a film, because he used to work at a video store, and somebody came and asked for a French film. I don't remember what the film was. And he asked him for a recommendation, and Quentin recommended this French film. And then the guy was like, redneck guy was like, I ain't gonna watch no Reservoir Dogs. And then he's like, that's hilarious. And that's why he named his first film Reservoir Dogs. That's where the name comes from. So definitely that's, I don't know what movie you're talking about with Michael Caine. I have no idea. What is that? Do you have any idea what it's called?
I'm trying to make, it was from the 70s. It was a younger Michael Caine. They all had nicknames as well. They had the Mr. Pink, Mr. Brown, like that comes from that movie.
Is it the Italian
I
Job?
remember.
Because that's the Michael Caine heist movie with Beatles. They all have different Beatles, different cars. That's the heist movie I know from the 70s.
I'll take a look at it. If I can remember it, then I'll bring it up. No, anyway, yeah. So I was gonna say, like, one thing that's really striking about this movie, and he hasn't really come back to much later, is just how visceral the violence actually is. Like you're saying, a lot of this here is not the usual heist movies. Like, people get shot and everything is okay, but here people are actually, you can feel the suffering of Mr. Orange and Mr. White, especially at the end. Like,
yeah, they're dying slowly. He's dying slowly. Like, he's bleeding to death. Yeah, that's what we're watching. Exactly. Yeah, it's very visceral. It's very real. Exactly, which is what I like about Reservoir Dogs so much, is that it's just so bloody and so raw. You know, it's raw. It's disgusting. I love it.
It does. It takes stuff that you're kind of used to and just forces you to pay attention to it again. You're like, hey, actually, people are getting shot here. It's not just like fun action movie, people running around. Like it takes these cliches and makes you like pay attention. And you're like, oh, yeah, actually stuff's happening.
Yeah, but that's the thing, right? When you look at that kind of like level of violence, I think at the time, if you can go back into that time, like you might have saw it like in a lot of R-rated B films like RoboCop, you know what I'm saying, and horror and everything else. So when you got the thing about for Quentin Tarantino was that level of violence for what he brings to the table was probably the first time it was mainstream, at least from what I could, you know what I'm saying, at least from what I could recall at the time. And so for a lot of people, this was kind of shocking. So these weren't just like B film or horror film blood squibs and everything else. Yeah. And again, it goes back to, like I said, what I liked about the movie and then the trend of it, like, you know, for Quentin Tarantino in the 90s was that, you know, you couldn't walk into a Quentin Tarantino film. And what I would say about Quentin Tarantino is what I said before. We live in a world of CGI and animation and fantastic technology, but the greatest special effect in movies is the story. Mm-hmm. And so for me, I believe that Quentin Tarantino has nailed down the greatest special effect, which is the story. Because the way he tells the story, the way it's pieced together, you can't sit through a Quentin Tarantino film and say, I know how it's all going to play out.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough.
Right? So, you know what I'm saying? So, yeah, exactly. So you can't sit, like I said, you can't sit through it. So, you know, you may walk into a Quentin Tarantino film and he's starting with the ending, or you're somewhat in the beginning, or over the course of the film, or multiple films, let's say like Kill Bill, it's all kind of pieced together. And so, like for Reservoir Dogs, for me, what I enjoyed about that film was that over it was all pieced together, along with the plot twist, you know, of Mr. Orange, you know, and what his motivations were, and you know how he was engaged in it. And so when you look at that, and I know we're talking about the film, and this is my fight with Razz later, and I believe that
stick around.
You know what I'm saying? So this is the type of storytelling that led to films like, which we probably could talk about in the future if it comes up for Razz, is Donnie Brasco.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Without so for me, like I said, again, I like this film. I love all the pop culture references that came out. Like I said, I love all the pop culture references that came out of it. And here's the thing: if Quentin Tarantino was trash, then Reservoir Dogs would be all that you've known him for. But he's made so many other iconic films that it got pushed to the back, because when Reservoir Dogs dropped, again, on the streets, that's all we did. We recited that movie backwards and forwards.
I mean, yeah. And I'm telling you, I love Reservoir Dogs. Despite how I feel about later Tarantino. And you're 100% right. His use of nonlinear filmmaking, and it's one of the iconic tools that he's ever used. And he really like put it on the map and put that. I mean, he's not the first to do it. We know that in classic cinema. There's been nonlinear storytelling. Akira Kurosawa being one of the masters of doing that, and I know that Quentin Tarantino worships Akira Kurosawa and an entirety of Asian cinema. I mean, he's a film fan making films. That's what was cool about Reservoir Dogs. When I watched it back in the day, when I watched it now, I'm like, man, and I have such a problem with his modern films. This is why I get so upset and I get like personally invested, because I actually love Reservoir Dogs. I love Pulp Fiction. I'm like, these movies are freaking amazing, you know, and they're made by somebody like me who just sits every day and just watches movies from all over the world, from different times and different decades. Not the movies that are just in the cinema or in front of me on Netflix. Like, that goes and searches. I go and search for movies I haven't seen, and I watch them like, oh my God, this is amazing. So if you give me a $1.3 million budget and a Harvey Keitel, I'd make something, well, I'm not saying that's good, but I'm just saying I'd be like this. I'd be making this like raw, crazy, weird film that's sort of influenced by a lot of cinema that came before it, that's trying to do something, that's trying to like say something. Like, that's probably what I would do, you know what I mean? So that's why I feel I'm such a fan of this. And I'm such a fan of his style of, like you said, it's non-linear storytelling. That's why I say, no matter what, he's a fantastic writer. He's actually a great writer. And I still haven't started talking about dialogue, which is my favorite aspect of Quentin Tarantino, but also his way of dissecting the script and rearranging it in a way that really suits the story and plays it like, And here's something about him that is something that I love and I hate. I love in the beginning, I hate now, which is, to me, Quentin Tarantino does not, I don't feel like he makes films like a filmmaker. I feel like he makes films like a DJ. Like, if you look at his movies and you look at his scenes, if you look at his movies and if you like break them down into the scenes, you'll feel like every film he's made is like an album, where like the different scenes play a different beat and a different punch. And that's why he does non-linear, because if he does it in a linear fashion, you're gonna have setup, then development, and then, you know, climax. So you'll have like this upward, like uphill incline. But the way that he does it, it goes from calm of a bunch of people sitting in a diner talking to blood in the car. You know, imagine like an album. You start with a soft, nice song, and then you go into something more energetic, and then a love song, and then like a catchy pop song, and then like an experimental song. You know what I mean? Like a really good album, kind of like a Beatles album or like a Led Zeppelin album. You know. So the way that he does it is that because he's so interconnected into music, you see it here. That's why he just takes all these scenes and messes them up like that, and he creates this. Like, the film feels like when you're watching it, like you're listening to it, like you're listening to music, and every scene is a song. It's not like this happened and then that happened and then that happened. It's just you experience every scene separately, but somehow it adds to the overall experience, which is literally sitting and listening to a musical album. So he's more of a DJ.
I listened to an interview with him, and he said the first thing he does when he has a movie concept is to the soundtrack.
Yeah. There you go.
He will think of the soundtrack first, and then the movie comes out of it.
Yeah, exactly. So it's very interesting. So I really like that about him. His use of dialogue is fantastic, and of course we see it here 100%. You're just sitting there with these guys. There's so much. We're barely saying anything. Most of this film is a bunch of people talking, but it's just so energetic and enigmatic and well written that you just can't help but listen to these guys talk, and it's actually fascinating, you know. It just this becomes much better, and of course much better sculpted. Again, this is one of his first films. Like, he was still a little rougher on the edges. Later, so well polished when he's writing stuff in Pulp Fiction, and then for me, like the height of his dialogue writing. Of course, Pulp Fiction, but for me, it's actually. Inglourious Bastards, and I actually really like Inglourious Bastards. I like the first half of Inglourious Bastards. I don't like the entire first half, not just the opening scene. I actually love the scene. I love the game scene in the bar. I love, like, it's not just the opening scene. Opening scene is great and Waltz is great, but I actually like some of the later, because there's the thing, because I'm a writer, I get attracted to the small scenes that are not like the big scenes, because those scenes are so hard to make amazing. Like, for example, when you think about Reservoir Dogs, you think about the scene in the beginning, you know, the breakfast scene in the beginning when they're sitting around the breakfast table having breakfast and having that hilarious opening sequence, you know, with the conversation. This is one of the big scenes, right? It's a memorable scene. It introduces all the characters, and it does it in a very good way, you know, exposition in a very nice way. And then later you have the scene, the scenes inside the warehouse where Harvey Keitel and Vega are like standing off to each other. That's a very iconic scene. The dialogue there is very iconic, with Mr. White and Mr. Pink as well, when they're talking to each other. Like, for example, like that scene is not one of the big scenes, you know. When you compare it to, for example, the closing scene or the scene with the cutting of the ear and the torture, like these are the big scenes. And there's something about big climactic scenes that some writers say that they kind of write themselves. You know what I mean? Like, you have this really cool thing that's going to happen in the movie, this really big event. It sort of writes itself. But the small scenes, you know, the transitional scenes, the scenes that are in Act 2, where people are just talking and you're trying to get an idea across, like 4 guys in a car talking, and you're just sitting there in the car like, this is awesome. That's harder to do. You know what I mean? We are transitioning from one plot point to the other. And yet, it's a captivating scene still. So I get attracted to those kinds of scenes. So this applies to Reservoir Dogs.
Nothing drives me crazier than a movie where you feel like this scene is just here because they needed to film 120 minutes or whatever. Like, you get those movies where...
You get that more in TV, especially in TV writing, you get that stuff. For sure.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah. But Tarantino shows, like, he showed so much love for these minor scenes, like you said. Yeah. It kind of shows, like, you can actually pay attention to
because he treats every scene like a song. So he doesn't treat the movie like a bunch of events that need to happen in order. Every scene is its own thing, and that's why his movies are so memorable and rewatchable, and people remember, because you remember scenes, and you go back and you rewatch and you can watch the scene without watching the whole film, and it still be impactful. Like, there's a lot of, if I take any film and I go like 3/4 in and I grab a scene and I look at it, I'm gonna be like, I don't know what the hell's going on. I don't have context. I don't have any subtext to this. It's not going to be as enjoyable. But you go and you take any scene from Pulp Fiction, any scene from Reservoir Dogs, almost any scene from like Inglourious Bastard, and just look at it, be like, well, that was fascinating. You know what I mean? Like, the whole scene plays out like a song, you know, like a track. That's the kind of stuff I like, and it's definitely here. You have fantastic performances. Let's talk about the iconic stuff. First of all, I want to talk about what did you guys think of that opening sequence, that opening scene? What did you guys think of that? Hello?
We're gonna start? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
You want to go ahead, William, or should I start?
Yeah, you. Hold on.
Okay.
What did you say now?
What did you think
of? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. What did you think of we're talking about the first scene, the opening breakfast scene?
But you know, that was the thing, right? Because one of the things here's the thing. One, I loved it. And the thing is that I was trying to think of a way kind of to rearrange the words, because as we know in Quentin Tarantino, you know, Razz Reviews is a wholesome show. So I was trying.
Yeah, please, please protect my monetizations, please.
Razz Reviews is a wholesome show, and so for me, like I said, man, I love it. This is what I'm trying to say. This is what started the precedent for it all. And, you know, and I'm going to come back to the opening scene. I'm going to come right back to it.
You know, it reminds me of Clerks, by the way. That opening scene.
Yeah, Kevin Smith, definitely. Like,
Clerks.
He's not the person that does dialogues.
It reminded you of, but even for Clerks has a lot of stuff that you cannot repeat.
Yeah.
On Razz Reviews, because it's a, you know, it's a wholesome, like I said, it's a wholesome, it's a wholesome show. But what I want to say about the opening scene is talking about like how you establish like a precedent, right? So remember before in the earlier talks we talked about foreshadowing. But for me, what the opening scene did was that it actually set up the whole film. It established a precedent for me in terms of like the way the movie was going to play out, how the characters were going to interact, and it felt like these were people that had, like, you know, they bonded, they had known each other for years. You know what I'm saying? You know, guys who have known each other for years, so to speak. And so for me, I was like, okay, you know, when I saw the scene, I'm trying not to, and I apologize, Razz, because I know what I want to say, but I don't want to.
You can bleep yourself.
I don't want.
You can bleep yourself.
You know, like I said, I'm trying to find the expression of it, but you know, they're sitting around the table and they're talking the stuff that they're talking about, you know, making the moves and everything that they're gonna make. And so for me, what I loved about it was that I love the fact that, you know, like in terms of storytelling and character development, that this is just a bunch of guys sitting at a table talking to each other. Right, so there's no, there's no shooting, there's no this, and then also from that scene, what we got is what I won't repeat on Razz Reviews is that, like I told you, a lot of this stuff Razz made its way into pop culture, right? So a lot of it, so like kind of like when we did the other film, and I was like, you know, give me the keys, you know. Give me the keys. So it's the, like I said again, it's the same thing. And so and Quentin Tarantino, and I'm so sorry guys, because I'm gonna come back because I really want to do this. I'm just looking how to verbalize it, because what happens is in a lot of Quentin Tarantino films, not only is there cursing, but there's also ethnic slurs and everything else. And so
I just want to point out, Stephen, from the comments, he's saying we've done some pretty mature films for this wholesome show.
Yeah, and this is, I'm saying, like, if this was a picture on the couch, I would go for it. But like,
Razz Reviews After Dark.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Razz Reviews After Dark. Well, I'm just, like I said, I'm just trying to find. And for me, I'm gonna be honest with you guys. And another thing too, when you look at this, even for the opening scene, right? And I know that everybody likes Mr. Blonde, but Steve Buscemi is my guy.
I love
right?
Steve Buscemi so much.
I'm going to tell you something.
Yeah.
There are Raz and I had a conversation. Raz and I had a conversation so many years ago, and we were talking about actors. And I would watch Stephen Buscemi play a lampstand.
Yeah.
I promise you, I would pay, because Raz and I were talking about Tom Hardy and certain guys. He's like, you know what? I would pay money to watch Tom Hardy play a tablecloth. I will anything for Steve Buscemi, anything that he's in. Hey, this summer, Steve Buscemi is grandma's parking permit. And guess what? I'm gonna go see. And so, like I said, so for me, and like I said, I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna better articulate it.
Yeah.
But especially for me, like when you look at the characters, and whenever there's a gangster film, if Steve Buscemi is in it, it just the presence of it just elevates. So guys like, and I know that he's not in this film, but for me, there's something about Steve Buscemi and Christopher Waltz. It just does something for me.
I love him, actually. Right? I love him in his film, especially like he's that originally Quentin wanted to play Mr. Pink. He was supposed to play Mr. Pink, by the way. But Steve Buscemi really liked the script and really lobbied for this character. He liked the aspect that, he's a professional. He's a professional, okay? Am I the only one? Yeah. So actually, he lobbied hard for it, and Quentin ended up giving the role to him and playing Mr. Brown. But yeah, Quentin was supposed to play Mr. Ping in the first place, which is I wonder how that would have turned out. But like I like that. I mean, I love Steve Buscemi. Like he's amazing. Look. At the end of the day, I think that Reservoir Dogs, the cool thing about it is that I think it definitely, it has aged very, very well. It's a film that has aged very well, which is pretty cool, which is pretty tough. Especially in the 90s, there's a lot of films that have not aged that well, like The Last of the Mohicans. Yeah. Anyway, so and other things, and others.
How could you?
And others, but like this film, like it's so cool that you can watch it now. You can be a teenager right now and watch, or like a little older, but like watch it and be like, man, this is cool. And this is what I kept saying when I was watching it. I kept saying, like, because I haven't seen it since I was in college, and when I saw it in college, I was like, this is cool. You know what I mean? And now it's harder to feel things are cool because I'm older. I have a higher, like, I don't know, lower tolerance for like it's cool. But I was watching this, I'm like, man, this is cool. And what I like about Reservoir Dogs is that it's not cool just to be cool. It's cool because it's the best, coolest way to tell this kind of story. It's not just cool to be cool. Yeah, it's just cool. It's a cool movie done by a bunch of cool guys. And that's something I really, really like about it.
But when you talk about the opening scene, right? Remember I told you in terms of precedent, and that's what I'm trying to say. Like, when you're watching it, you're like, it's like just a bunch of badasses sitting around the table. Again, playing and talking about making moves and everything else, and that's the precedent. And like I said, that is the complete precedent for the entire film.
Yeah.
And again, along with the music and everything that Quentin Tarantino does, it's like But this is my argument with Razz, because, like, again, Razz is a film person, but what happens is that, I dabble just a tad. Like, I like music, Andante, Adagio, Allegro, the speed of music, all these things and everything else. But I think that when you're making a film, what a lot of people don't realize is that the city, the background, the soundtrack, these things are also characters in the film.
Yeah.
They also have
some films
story.
utilize this better than others.
Correct. So, like, for example, if you looked at Todd Phillips' Joker, what helped that film was the fact that late 70s, early 80s New York was such the presence of that environment was so big there.
Something that Taxi Driver did so well. Yeah.
Correct. So how the environment impacted the character is what told the story. And this is what I like about Quentin Tarantino, is that the music, the background, and the setting. So even when you talk about the opening scene, just them sitting around the table and all these things, all of that is like how Razz said, a story within a story within a story within a story.
Yeah. No, look, again, he's a cool director. That I will never come out and say he's not a cool director. He's a cool director. He's a fantastic writer, and he's really good at what he does, right? The issue I have with Quentin Tarantino, and keep in mind, I love Reservoir Dogs. I love it, okay? But the thing that I personally have an issue with, and again, this discussion is not to take away from people who like Quentin Tarantino, which most people do. But, film is subjective. The thing that I'm not a fan of in his later work, so to explain something, I love Reservoir Dogs, I love Pulp Fiction, and I love the first half, or even maybe 3/4, I'd say a little less than that, of Inglourious Bastards. I love those, right? Love them. I think they're amazing. I don't like anything else. And it's just not my thing. The reason why I don't like these films is two reasons. Number one, and this discussion would be 2 hours long. So I don't want this to be a Quentin Tarantino discussion. I just want to put my voice out there, just because I'm constantly asked about this.
Because Pulp Fiction might be on the list also.
No, I love Pulp Fiction. I love Pulp Fiction. I love Reservoir Dogs, and I love the first half of.
So it's
I'm into the half.
Yeah. So hold on. So it's two things. Number one, it's this question of, is he borrowing or is he stealing? And my answer is not, he's just stealing from other people. No, there is some stuff that he is borrowing, but there is also stuff that he's taken to such a, especially for me, the thing that's guilty of this the most is Kill Bill. A lot. And I have a lot of problems with Kill Bill because I'm such a fan of anime and such a fan of Asian cinema and classic Asian cinema, Chinese, Hong Kong, Korean cinema, and Japanese. I've seen such beautiful works that were sort of taken in something like Kill Bill for me and turned into something that sort of if Coca-Cola comes and buys your great grandma's soda shop and the Coca-Cola new flavor, you know what I mean? It just felt like it got so commercialized, and that's what bothers me about it. But the thing that I don't like about Quentin, which many can agree he sometimes is guilty of, is that there's a line that he tiptoes on between creative, or let's call it stylistic, between stylistic and self-indulgent. And he sort of does this for me in his films. He kind of goes back and forth. In some films where he is being stylistic, but he's a little restrained. And this is what I like. Like, for example, in this film, the one of the most iconic scenes ever is the scene where he cuts off where Vega cuts off the ear, right? Okay, iconic. This movie is very bloody, I think we all agree, right? But then he comes in and he's playing which is, by the way, really cool. This is called contrapuntal sound, and it's something that started in the 90s with Quentin and other filmmakers, where you put music that doesn't fit the situation and just creates this absurd, weird, uncomfortable feeling. Right? Yeah. It's called contrapuntal sound. It's a really cool technique. He uses it here, and what happens? He's dancing, and we know what he's gonna do, right? We know it, and he's dancing, and he's about to cut his ear, and then what happens? The camera just goes away. That's a director decision. Why? He does it because he wants us to feel that violence, to feel just how violent and how dangerous and crazy this man is, and because our imagination is going to be worse than whatever we see, right? This is a director using visual techniques to tell a story. If I counter that with, for example, some sequences in Kill Bill and some sequences in Django Unchained specifically, where the violence is so over the top, right, that you lose that restraint, and it just becomes, I'm Quentin Tarantino, I can put a bunch of bullet holes in a person and they're gonna fly out of the room unrealistically. And I don't feel like that serves the story as much as it serves Quentin Tarantino himself. So at some point, he does, for me, I feel, I'm watching this, I'm like, this guy's being self-indulgent. Like in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I get it. I get the commentary it's doing on Hollywood. I get it. I get it. It does not need to be 500 hours of driving around in the car with feet in front of the camera. Like, this is him being in the film. Quentin Tarantino is not in Reservoir Dogs. He made it, and it's clear, and his touch is there. And he physically is even there. But I don't feel like he's so over it. So like his hands are in it as much as I do in Kill Bill, in Django Unchained, and in like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, for example.
So you feel like he's like Puff Daddy in the 90s, where a music producer shows up in his artist.
Yes.
Like, okay.
Not as a cameo, which as a cameo is fine. Like Hitchcock does it. We talked about it last week. Like a lot of filmmakers, as a cameo is fine. He puts himself in the film, that's fine. But sometimes he puts his persona. He's promoting himself as a product that he places on top of his films so much that it becomes for me self-indulgent. And I don't feel like I'm watching a film. I feel like I'm watching Quentin Tarantino make a film. That's the difference, and that's why I don't feel it in Pulp Fiction. I don't feel it in Reservoir Dogs, and I didn't feel it in the first 3/4 or first half of, like, you know, in that scene in Inglourious Bastards where they're in the bar and they're playing the game and like 3 versus 3. This is not Quentin. This is his style being used and utilized so well to build the tension. When the stuff in the cinema and the girl Shoshana and her storyline of trying to burn down the cinema, that I feel is Quentin going like, "Hi, I'm here. I'm doing my cool stuff. I'm cool." And that's what I don't like. This is what I wanted to explain. Why I don't.
I gotta say one thing.
I see your point now. Once like Puff Daddy will show up in somebody's video and he'll be dancing and he'll start rapping, and it's not his song. It's a song for his artist, but he will feel the need, to kind of, okay, you know what though? I could see your point. I could see your point in that, and thank you for ruining it for me, right? Because again, here's my thing, right? Because you have to remember, right? So again, as a film person, you're gonna see things that other people don't see, right? When you go to these films, right?
But to be honest with you, William, I've had a problem with Kill Bill since it came out, and ever since then, because I loved Quentin Tarantino, and then he did Brown. What is it called? Jackie Brown, and I'm like, I don't understand this. And I was young. I wasn't in film school. I wasn't a film person. I was just an audience member, right? The only film I've seen post film school, maybe, I don't know if Inglourious Bastards, when did it come out? But like, I'm not sure. Yeah, I was still in college. I wasn't in film school. You know what I mean? I wasn't making movies. Like, you know what I mean? Like, Once Upon a Time, I saw it as a filmmaker, and I'm like, bleh, I hated it. But like, Django, I hated actually. Django is the one I hate. I hate that film. I hate that film with a passion. But that's a whole other discussion. Like, I think it's a travesty. But anyway, I didn't like Kill Bill as a kid. Like, I was in college, I was like maybe 19 when it came out, and I loved anime, and you know how I feel. William knows me. He knows how I feel about martial arts. I play martial arts. I did Kung Fu. I did Arnis. I have weapons. Like, I love, Bruce Lee is my dad's hero, so I was influenced by a lot of his films, Jackie Chan. I love this stuff. So I was like, Kill Bill is for me. And I sat there, and I felt like it wasn't. I felt like it was me being invited to Quentin's bedroom to look at his stuff. You know what I mean? That's how I felt, and I didn't feel that as a filmmaker, William. I felt that as a fan. That was just me, and I argued with a lot of people in college at the time.
One of my favorite movies ever. I'm feeling attacked here, personally attacked.
Look, at the end of the day, I understand that he's become a persona, and some people might argue that he's overhyped or stuff. That's not my argument. Is he overhyped?
I do want to say one thing, though. One thing.
Sure.
It's an overlooked thing is that, okay, so Kill Bill Volume 1, of course, has all that, like, over-the-top, the action, the violence. I gotta say, like, I love, like, Shaw Brothers and those, like, 90s Hong Kong action movies. And I found out about them mostly through Kill Bill. So I can't, like, begrudge Kill Bill for borrowing them because they were my... One thing I want to say, just one thing, is, like, Volume 2, Kill Bill Volume 2 has probably the most poignant, emotional, like, scenes that Quentin Tarantino has ever made, and I think it gets overlooked because Volume 2 is not as well regarded. But probably, like, some of the best scenes, like character developments, emotional scenes, is in Volume 2.
I don't know. Maybe. Yeah. I mean, I saw it and I was like, I watched both, and I don't know if I was sort of influenced by my utter hatred of Kill Bill 1 when it came out. Like, I was really upset. Like, it's one of those things where I was like, personally, because I I felt like Quentin. I like Quentin. I loved Reservoir Dogs. I'm like, he's gonna do something really cool, and then it just felt like this really self-indulgent male fantasy foot fetish like replay of martial arts cinema. Like it just, again, I'm not saying that I'm right. This is how I felt. I feel like he tends to be self-indulgent, and I feel like over the years he's gotten worse at it and further away from this cool, raw, dedicated filmmaking and storytelling that he used to do, like in Reservoir Dogs and like in Pulp Fiction. I feel like he's strayed away from that. That's my opinion. William, are you breaking your microphone?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, here, like, I don't know. Right, like I said, one, I love Kill Bill, right? You know what I'm saying? And that thing, and by the way, guys, just so you know, I am a Kung Fu film junkie, right? So, and, you know, just as a quick sidebar, in the United States, there was a plot for children to kill themselves because on Saturday mornings, you would have your anime that came on early in the morning. Then you have other action cartoons. Then you have the Marvel Hour. After the Marvel Hour came WWF Wrestling. And after WWF Wrestling came Kung Fu Theater. Right? And so, again, Drunken Master, the 5 Deadly Venoms. We can do that. That's a whole separate thing. But, okay, I just didn't know that Kung Fu Junkies was still a thing.
Yeah.
I thought it had come and gone. And I'm glad to hear it. But for me, I don't know. But to your point, though, I think that's the beauty of the films is that Quentin Tarantino has become a persona. It's almost like a signature in a sense. So for me, I know you're not feeling it. I know that you don't like it. But like you said, but for me, I expect it because, you know, each director has his or her own personality, right? And so, you know, if you follow films, at some point, you'll be able to say, okay, this film was made by Razz. This is a William Ruffin.
And that's for all great directors have a signature. But there's a difference between the touch and this. You know what I mean? There's a difference. It's not the same. Think of it as a cake. Think of it as a cake, right? Imagine like a fantastic chef comes in and does his signature whoopie, you know, thing on the cake. And you'd be like, oh, this was done by Chef Whoopty-doopty. You know what I mean? You see it, but it's still your cake. You're gonna eat it. It's your cake. What he does is he grabs the cake and puts his face into it and goes, here, look, my face is engraved in this cake. Now eat it. That's how I feel about his latest films. Okay, I want to eat it.
I am loving these metaphors. We're getting into a metaphor war here. Like cakes are flying, faces are dunked within cake. Everything's happening.
But my beef is that Quentin Tarantino, not only did he shape the 90s, but he shaped gangster film. This is what I'm trying to say.
I agree.
I was there when he gave birth to Guy Ritchie.
Yes.
So you know, again,
but then you don't see that he has become a bit of something else later films, like Django, like Once Upon a Time. You don't feel like he sort of kind of got high on himself a little bit at all? You can take you think Once Upon a Time. You take Once Upon a Time and you put it to what we just saw in Reservoir Dogs. Put them next to each other. There's no difference. There's no diversion at all. Come on, William! Come on!
I mean, he's changed directions. Every director does that, right?
Yes.
Like, I think if you're expecting, I think a lot of people expect Pulp Fiction in every movie that he does, and it's never Pulp Fiction.
100%. I agree with you. What I'm saying is that what he developed into is not, for me, better. It's worse.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. Of course, Fincher's 7 is not Social Network, right?
Okay.
It's different, but it's not worse.
I like Off the Wall and Thriller Michael Jackson, but I don't like Bad and Invincible Michael Jackson.
Sure. Yeah. I like Ride the Lightning Black Album Metallica. I don't like, stuff.
What's that? Load and Reload? What was that?
I have too many Metallica fans. Actually, I like Load and Reload. I don't like Some Kind of Monster. What was it called? God, I hated that album. What was it called? Not Death Magnetic, the one before it. You're a metalhead. You should help me. What is it called? Where's Neo when you need him? He knows this stuff.
Yeah.
I call it Some Kind of Monster because they did a documentary called Some Kind of Monster about making, because that album like turned all Metallica fans against Metallica because they hated it so much, and they made such a fantastic documentary. By the way, recommendations here for the film club. It's called Some Kind of Monster. Fantastic, about the band literally doing group therapy and falling apart. Like the biggest heavy metal band in the world is doing group therapy. It's actually amazing. But they were making that album. Is it Garage Inc? Saint Anger. That's the album. Okay. So I love Black Album, Ride the Lightning, Master of Puppets, Metallica. I hate Saint Anger, Metallica. Okay? And then recently they kind of come back. If Quentin comes back, I wanted Once Upon a Time in Hollywood to come back because I love the Manson family. Well, I don't love them. They're bad people. But I mean, I'm fascinated with the story. I'm fascinated with Sharon Tate. I think Roman Polanski, like that whole era of Hollywood is amazing. So I went in really excited, like, please, do Hardwired Self-Destruct, which is the Metallica album where they came back and they were much better than they were before. Like, do it. And it wasn't. It was like Django Unchained, but not as bad, I hated Django. How was that movie nominated for so many Oscars, guys? Somebody explain. How could it have been nominated for so many Oscars, William? I don't understand this. Was everybody high? Like, ow! It's so bad.
It had some great actors in it, though. Kerry Washington was in there.
But it's a garbage movie. I hated it so much. I couldn't sleep for 3 days. I was just in my bed like, am I insane? And everybody's like, oh my God, Django 500 Oscar nominees, every critics. And I'm like, have I lost my mind?
Now, whenever I see Razz, now I'm like, there's going to always be a Candyland.
No, I hated that movie with a passion. Oh my God. Anyway, I don't get it. But yeah, so look, at the end of the day, like, I'm so glad we watched this movie. I wondered how I would feel about it after all these years, because I used to love this film and I used to really be a fan of Quentin.
When was the last time you watched it?
More than a decade ago.
Okay.
Yeah. I haven't gone back to his films because I'm so angry about what has happened. And I feel like this crazy person holding a sign, it's the end of the world, and nobody believes them. This is how I feel. Do you know, William Ruffin, do you know how hard it is to be a film buff who doesn't like Quentin Tarantino? Do you know what my life is like, man? Do you know the horrors I live on the internet?
I can just imagine.
Okay? Every time I'm on a set or in a film discussion or in class or in whatever the hell, I'm talking films all the time, and somebody goes, hey, Quentin, and I go, ugh, and they, oh, you don't like Quentin. Do you know the kind of horrors I face? Man,
I'm sure
I
wish
wish
there has to be some Tarantino fatigue in
film
school right now.
I wish I liked Quentin Tarantino. I actually don't hate him. I don't think he's a bad. I never said he's a bad director. I just said his later films became self-indulgent, and just the hype around him and this fandom made my dislike of him much bigger.
Well,
but
the fandom is just whatever.
Yeah.
We don't talk about the fandom.
Yeah, because you gotta remember, when Razz was in film school, Quentin Tarantino was at his peak. You're fresh off of Pulp Fiction at that point.
Yeah.
So you know what I'm saying. So you can't. So you know what I'm saying. It was at his peak. So he couldn't do any wrong. I mean.
And then he did. And then it went awry. Like, I don't get it. And it's just so like, I don't.
Well, I think Pulp Fiction made him untouchable. You know what's funny? But that's what happens to some people, right? So in the world of art,
I mean, M. Night Shyamalan Ding Dong did Sixth Sense, which was amazing, and then he became touchable because he made crap.
But the thing about it is, here's the thing, because for Quentin Tarantino, he made some decent people, because a lot of people still like Kill Bill and everything. No, Kill Bill came after Pulp Fiction or before?
After.
Which one? After. Kill Bill after? No, after.
Yeah.
It was Pulp Fiction, Jackie Brown Trouble.
If you look at a lot of artists, right? A lot of artists, what happens is once you have your magnum opus, it overtakes you, right? And sometimes you can never surpass it. So Snoop Dogg will never make a better album than his first one, right? So for Quentin Tarantino, perhaps for Pulp Fiction, like I said, hey, I peaked. That is my claim to fame. It is my, it is my persona. And right now, there are some kids at New York Purchase University or NYU having it stuffed down their throats. Congratulations, I've won. Right?
But it's an incredible film, and he is capable of really cool things. But then he's just stopped making things cool and started making cool for the sake of being cool. And a lot of people fall for it, and it pisses me off.
But maybe that's the thing, man. So, for example, maybe for Quentin Tarantino, his days of being in front of the camera or behind the camera in certain ways are over. Maybe to your point now, he's a kick-ass writer. So if he was to give a script, like,
I wish.
Here's a script.
But this is the problem, William, because everybody has built this tower for him. He will never give his script to anybody. He's a fantastic writer and incredibly good at self-promoting. If he gave his script to somebody else, imagine, listen to me. Imagine this. Let me tell you. Imagine a Quentin Tarantino script in the hands of, for example, I don't know, who's a crazy film director? Taika Waititi, for example. And he goes and does like, imagine.
Yeah.
Imagine what you can get.
I was about to say that. Or a Quentin Tarantino script in the hands of Spike Lee.
For example. Yes.
Right?
This is what I mean.
Don't they hate each other?
Huh?
Yeah. Huh? I don't know.
Doesn't Spike Lee hate Tarantino?
Possibly, I think so. I think so because, I mean, this is something, I'm not connected to this at all, but from the history and reading, I know that a lot of people from the African American community have a problem with him and with his use of the N-word and with his depiction of African Americans. That there is some sort of, I believe there's some sort of controversy there against him, but it's not something I feel strongly about because, like, so I don't know, but it's maybe Spike Lee. I haven't heard, like, I think I've heard something about Spike Lee not liking him, but I'm not sure. Like, I prefer Spike Lee as a director. I prefer Quentin Tarantino as a writer, if that makes sense.
Like Neo said, imagine a Quentin Tarantino script in the hands of Edgar Wright.
Yes, for example. But he'll never do it, William. He'll never do it because his hordes of fans on the internet proclaim him to be some sort of film god that is untouchable. Like when like somebody can say, I don't like Stanley Kubrick. Nobody crucifies them. Somebody can say, I don't like Steven Spielberg. I don't like Martin Scorsese. People say this, and it's okay. Nobody goes, oh! But you stand in a crowd of film fans and say, I don't like Quentin Tarantino, and you are the Antichrist. You are a leper. Why? And this is why he'll never. This is why he makes.
It's thrown at you. Kick to his face is thrown at you.
Yes, and then he makes. That's what makes a guy like him, who made this beautiful film called Reservoir Dogs, fantastic, raw, beautiful film. This is what pushes him to make a stupid, self-indulgent, bullcrap film like Django Unchained or like Once Upon a Time in Crapville. This is what happens. And then he gets Oscars for it, and not for this. This is the film that deserves, this and Pulp Fiction are the films that deserve like 10 Oscars, not Django Unchained, and not freaking Once Upon a Time in I'm driving down the road with feet on the dashboard. Crap! I'm done. I have made my point.
Why not the cake? Right?
I can't wait to know what the hell next. Imagine like next film like Django Unchained. I don't want to. I cannot see that movie again. I will never see that film again.
If that were to happen, then I guess I'll be hosting it. I'm like, Razz couldn't make it.
I'll be like in a straight jacket. Okay, well,
what was that? No, she'll come up. What's that like? Hannibal Lecter or Steve Buscemi in Con Air. Like, so before she makes her comment, I'll have to and I'll have to wheel her in with the muzzle. You know what I'm saying? With the two prison guards. Like, so before say what you have to say.
Oh man, this was fun. Have I made myself clear to at least the two of you? Have I made my point?
Yes, I get it. Like I said, even because, like I said, Razz, I'll give you a call after this because because I couldn't find the verbiage off the top of my head because again, the opening scene for Reservoir Dogs, I couldn't change the words to better talk about.
Hey, count me in. I want to hear the slide go on.
Oh my God, that's gonna be a sidebar conversation with me and Razz because this is a wholesome channel. It's a family channel. It's, you know what I'm saying? It's for the children. You know. You know what I'm saying?
It's really for the monetization more than anything else. But anyway.
Yes.
Okay. Do you guys have any? I mean, I've yes.
Know what you said?
What was that?
I was saying I've made like my points. Do you guys have any? Because we're running out of time. So I just want to see. Do you guys have any final points to make other than Razz? We see your point. It's okay. You're gonna be okay.
No, you'll be fine.
You're gonna be okay. Everything will be fine. No, Django can't hurt you.
I think
Almost did.
When you talk about going back to rare form, right, in film, Razz, and when you look at Reservoir Dogs and the stuff that we brought up in with Guy Ritchie and all of that stuff, this is kind of what people really enjoyed about film. So before you hit the comic book side of things and, people like me, getting in the Zack Snyder debates and all of this stuff, this is what people actually like about the cinema. Lock, stock, and two smoking barrels, and it was not even that, it was a diverse kind of, and I know we're sticking on Quentin Tarantino specifically, but, this was one of the draws, right? So it wasn't, and I think one of the reasons why Quentin Tarantino has become a persona is because it's out of necessity, right? So to quote Anthony Mackie, when you look at the comic book films, it's not Chris Evans that's famous, it's Captain America that's famous. It's not Anthony Mackie that's famous, it's the Falcon that's famous. So I think that when you get to certain guys like Quentin Tarantino or whatever, maybe in today's paradigm, that's a part of their edge, that these guys themselves are also the character or the persona of what they're doing.
Cool. Noted.
Noted.
I haven't changed your mind. That was a good argument.
Your argument still does not look. His influence on cinema is not something I've ever denied, and I've never said, "Oh, this guy is not a good director. Why do people like his movies?" That's not my. If that was my argument, then you can say that to me. What I'm saying is that he's actually he was a good director. He's an incredible writer. He's a stylistic director, but at some point he crossed the threshold from stylistic to self-indulgent, and that's what I don't like.
Even look at the end of the first Avengers film. At the end of it, when they were all just sitting there eating shawarma after New York City got messed up.
Yeah.
That is Quentin Tarantino.
That is Reservoir Dog Quentin Tarantino, not Django Unchained Quentin Tarantino. This is what I'm saying. Perfect. That's literally, I'm going to put that image right here. That is literally, you guys won't see it, but it will be, that's literally this scene, in the breakfast scene of them sitting around and talking. It's literally that scene. That comes from quintessential Quentin Tarantino, not self-indulgent Quentin Tarantino. Point made.
No.
Yusuf, any final remarks? Because we got to do our hat thing. We got to book our next movie.
Yes, so, like everyone has their own criteria about what they like in movies. Some people are there for the effects, the action sequences, the storyline. For me, what makes a great movie are the scenes.
Yes.
I love well-constructed scenes, and I think despite some of the missteps maybe in later Tarantino, he still does wonderful scenes, and I still look
Correct. Even in Once Upon a Time, there is, except for Django, but even I hate it every second. But even in Once Upon a Time, which I thought was the garbage, there were really nice scenes in there with Leonardo, with there are. I agree.
That is why he's really good for rewatch, because when you actually stop thinking, okay, where's the story going, you just like sit back and enjoy the scenes. Like Hateful Eight, Once Upon a Time, did not like them first watch. Second watch, I like them a lot more. We'll just leave it at that. So scenes, it's all about the scenes.
I can live with that. I can live with that. All right. On that note, thank you guys. This was a cool discussion. I let off some steam. I haven't spoken ever on Razz Reviews about Quentin Tarantino. I haven't reviewed a single film for him, if you guys have noticed, because I always lose my mind, and like this is still me restraint. And as William is saying, I want to keep this wholesome. All right. So we have our hat. Okay. So are you guys ready? We're gonna pick the next movie. Let's do it. Gotta have drum roll. Thank you. Okay. Alrighty. Okay. What are we gonna?
It better be Caddyshack.
Django's not on the list. Okay. Oh. I don't know if you guys can see it now. Hold on.
I can't see it.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough for you. Hold on. We can do this. We can do this. All right.
No.
All right, hold on. I'll turn off my thing. That's what we did last time. All right. Turn off my background. Okay. One sec. All right. Here. Let it adjust. Okay, see that?
There will be blood. Oh,
yes.
Oh,
nice one.
Yeah.
I have not seen it.
Oh, added bonus.
I've never seen this movie. I've heard a lot about
You
it,
should see this movie.
but I've never seen it. So I've never seen it. I've never seen it. I've never seen a single scene from it. I actually don't know what it's about. I know that it's Daniel Day-Lewis and that he's amazing in it, and that's all I know. So this is going to be actually very interesting.
Is Daniel Day-Lewis the greatest actor that ever lived?
We could make that argument. We could make that argument. Sure.
I've heard
Technical.
lots of people say that. Yeah.
I mean, from a technical point of view, you could say that. Yeah, you can say that for sure. That's a cool discussion to have next time. But that is a question. But yeah, so I've actually never seen this. So yeah, so that's pretty cool. There will be blood. I'm going to be taking 1 week off. I need a break before our 10th film. So yeah, man. And actually, I'm gonna take some time off because I haven't seen this film. So after I see it, I want to research how it was made. Behind the scene information, which I usually have for all the films that I've seen, but I haven't seen it, so I don't know anything about it. So I do want to take some time also to mull it over. So we won't be coming back this Tuesday. We'll be coming back the Tuesday after. All right. So we'll be coming back in 2 weeks.
You'll dig it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That'll be June. That'll be June.
Gang love. You'll dig
Cool.
it.
All right. Let's see. I don't know. I have no idea. I don't even know what it's about. I've never even seen a trailer. I've seen like images of it. You know what I mean? I've never seen a trailer. I have no idea. So this will be very interesting. We'll be coming back June 2nd. Which is my...
We need a cake for the 10th episode special.
We should. We also could have a cake because it's actually the week of my birthday. Because my birthday is June 9th.
Oh,
so
okay.
that's the same week. So yeah, we'll do
You know what, Razz?
We'll do a cake.
Razz, you know, my mother's birthday is June 10th.
Oh, cool. There you go. Kindred spirits. Okay. That's awesome.
And I think
you're getting
I think June 8th is International Ghostbusters Day also.
Is it?
Did you hear?
8th.
Yes.
Great.
I think it's the 8th of June, Ghostbusters Day. Yeah.
There you go. What year was it?
Yes. No, June 7th. June 7th.
Oh, June 7th. Yeah, cool. Oh, okay, so that was cool. All right. Well, in any case, guys, thank you so much for joining. Thank you, Yusuf. Thank you, William. This was actually a very nice, wholesome discussion. You and I, William, had a civil discussion about Quentin Tarantino. This goes down in the history books.
This was an after dark. You know what, Razz? I'm going to tell you what happened. I have very warm feelings towards you. You know what I did? I was watching. I stumbled on the audience reaction for Infinity War, and I was watching it, and I was like, I was remembering, like, because they had the anniversary, and I was remembering, I was like, Razz and I'm going to tell you something right now. Me and Razz sitting next to each other during Infinity War was disgusting. Like we just threw up all over each other. I've never.
I think I punched you. I think I punched you.
Yeah, man. Oh my God, we just threw up.
I punched you. I remember I punched you when spoiler alert, when Thanos brought down the planet on top of their heads.
Yeah.
I remember punching you, be like, my God, and I punched him in the arm.
I mean, it's even the ending. So like when everybody vanished and then the film ended, we were like, "What the fuck? What the?
Bye monetization.
What the fuck?
Bye."
No.
You held on for so long, man.
Oh my God.
After hours begins now.
Yeah.
And Neo just came back and he's like, wait, what's the next movie? We already announced it, guys. So the next movie is There Will Be Blood. Wake up, Neo. It's There Will Be Blood. And so I haven't seen it. So that's going to be exciting. We're going to be coming back in 2 weeks from today. So we're not going to be on next Tuesday, but we'll be the Tuesday after that. As always, you can go to the movie club on Facebook, join the club, have discussions on there. I like seeing you guys discuss stuff. You can take this Quentin Tarantino discussion there and go nuts. William, you can unleash.
Yes.
Feel free. Happy Ramadan. I think it's the end of Ramadan. It's going to be Eid next week. So happy Eid to all of you. And stay safe and like, share, and subscribe. Invite people to the movie club. We're actually having a lot of fun with these movies. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye. Bye, Yusuf. Bye, William.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.